I'm going to start things off with Kyle Lowry, who we just talked about. 30% roster in Yahoo leagues. We have Tyler Hero out for 2 weeks. Miami has 3 games next week, so you're still getting some value there. In that game that Hero got hurt, Lowry goes for 17 points and 11 shots, 11 rebounds, 9 assists, and 1 steal in 35 minutes. Like Shannon alluded to, at Lowry's age, what we've seen from him, he has like 11% usage this season. You're hoping for like 1 out of every 3 or 4 games being like very good. But we know he can hit a bunch of threes. He still has steals upside. And obviously assists upside. Even like he's ranked 82nd right now in 8-cat. So even with his kind of muted numbers, his muted role, he's been fine. And again, 3 games next week for the Heat. Ken, who is your first waiver wire suggestion?
We're going to New Orleans for Jordan Hawkins, who's 45% rostered. Unfortunately, Pels only have 3 instead of 4 games next week. CJ McCollum is out with a lung issue. This is the second time McCollum's been dealing with that. There's no timetable for McCollum's return this season, so they instantly started the rookie Hawkins. And Monday night, he had 31 points, 7 threes, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, and 1 steal over a team-high 38 minutes. Talk about just getting tossed in the deep end. I don't think he's going to have 31 points every night, but goodness gracious, Jordan Hawkins looks like the real deal for the Pelicans.
Shannon, why don't you take us to your first waiver wire suggestion?
This is a guy we talked about preseason, during drafts, even probably in one of the first waiver wire pickups of this year, but he's still wildly under-owned. Coby White for the Chicago Bulls has been solid this year. His overall rank this season is in the 160 range, but he remains locked into the starting lineup for Chicago. And he's picked up his performance recently. Just looking at the past 5 games, 13.6 points, 3.2 rebounds, 4.8 assists, 1.2 steals, and 1.8 3-pointers as well. Solid percentages, from the line, 83.3%, 43.5%. For Coby White, I'll take it. I think that's solid enough from the floor. But you've got some 3-pointers with the assists creeping up. I like him more. And I think he should be considered in most 12-team leagues, especially if you need that 3-pointer assist combo.
My second waiver wire suggestion is the clinic, Kelly Olynyk. 32% roster in Yahoo leagues. Walker Kessler out at least 2 weeks. We touched on that at the top of the show. In their first game without Kessler, Will Hardy shifted John Collins up to center and then put in Ochai Agbaji into the starting lineup and also switched Talen Horton-Tucker for Keyonte George. So a lot happened in this previous game. That was against Indiana. Olynyk played only 21 minutes, but he was in foul trouble. So I think it's worth monitoring what he does in tonight's game, just Friday, to see kind of where his minutes are. Olynyk, in only 20 minutes per game right now for the whole season, ranks 128th. So he's usable in 12-team leagues as it is. He sees a 9% usage increase with Kessler off the floor. We know he's a per 36 monster. We saw that happen at points last year. We saw it happen when he got traded to Houston a couple of years back, and he just kind of took the team over. And Utah has 3 games next week, so you don't have to worry about a short week.
My first long shot, I'm going with Haywood Highsmith, who's only 3% rostered in Yahoo. He started the last 3 games for the Heat and averaging 23 minutes a game. As we mentioned earlier in the show, Tyler Hero is out. Wednesday versus Memphis, Highsmith had 14 points, 4 stocks, and 2 threes. And look, the Heat are just thin after this offseason where they lost Max Strus to Cleveland. Gabe Vincent went to the Lakers. I think Highsmith's another one of those uncovered gems that the Miami Heat seem to find every year. Anyway, only 3 games for the Heat, but I like Highsmith in a deep league flyer or if you've got a big bench. Shannon, you've got a pretty sexy second pickup suggestion.
Sassy. He's definitely sassy. Marcus Sasser, rookie backup point guard for the Detroit Pistons, has been on a heater for the past week or so. Over the past 5 games, 27.4 minutes off the bench, 16.4 points, 3.4 rebounds, 3.8 assists, 1.6 steals, shooting 55.9% from the floor, 2.6 3-pointers. Anyone who watched the Bucks-Pistons game the other night saw Marcus Sasser take over pretty much in the third quarter. 26, 6, and 2 with 1 steal, 11 for 17 from the floor, 3 3-pointers in that game. There's been a lot of hype from Monty Williams about Sasser. It's been obvious, even going back to Summer League preseason, that he likes Sasser quite a bit. And, right now, you look at the last 3 games, Jaden Ivey has sat out. Burks has sat out as well. So the team has been shorthanded. Every single comment I see from Monty Williams about Sasser is encouraging. I believe Sasser is one of his guys. I think he really likes him. He likes the fit for this team. I think there's even a possibility that Sasser gets moved into the starting lineup before a guy like Ivey does. But for now, if he continues to be this productive off the bench, he's averaging over 30 fantasy points per game over the past 5 games, and he's wildly underowned, right around 30% rostered. You're looking for point guard production, 3-pointers, scoring, solid percentages. That's all on the table with Marcus Sasser.
My long shot waiver wire pickup, which I can't believe he qualifies as a long shot, Reggie Jackson of the Denver Nuggets, who, of course, is going to see increased playing time with Jamal Murray out for probably about a month. And I think it's notable that it's a hamstring for Jamal Murray. Notoriously tough to come back from, notoriously high re-injury rate for hamstrings. Played 32 minutes, Jackson did, in Wednesday's close win over the Warriors. That's notable since he played 24 and 25 minutes in the previous 2 games. So I think some people looked at that and went, I'll have to pick him up. Both of those games were blowouts. This Warriors game was close and he played 32 minutes. He's averaging 15 points, 6 assists, and 1.5 steals per 36 on the season. Don't expect the steals to keep up. He's not that guy, but you will happily, in a deep league, take something like 14 and 5 or 13 and 4 consistently for a month. And if you're concerned about just what they have next week, they have 3 games. But this is a long-term pickup for pretty much every league. Someone who is not shoot first nor pass first is your third waiver wire option, Ken.
I'm going with Jonathan Isaac. The Magic have 4 games next week, and in 16 minutes last night, 12 points, 7 boards, 2 blocks, and 1 3. Could he finally be healthy? Probably not. Can he stay healthy for 4 games? Hopefully. If you're desperate, could use some crazy big guy stats. Heck, it's always fun to take a flyer on Jonathan Isaac, cross your fingers, and hope he doesn't visit the MASH unit anytime soon. 1 week? Maybe.
That brings me to my guy who I actually think has top 100 upside, even though he's a long shot. Keyonte George, rookie guard for the Utah Jazz. He is rostered 13% on Yahoo. He has 3 games next week. Alex mentioned George was plugged into the starting lineup for Utah with Kessler down. It's kind of been in the cards. There's been the roster percentage for George is only above 10% because there's been a lot of folks stashing him since draft season. And it's because it's expected he'll eventually take over the starting point guard role. Horton Tucker hasn't been great to start the season. Jordan Clarkson's not a point guard. Colin Sexton's not really a point guard either. Keyonte George is a first-round pick, and this is a rebuilding Jazz team. No matter how well they surprisingly did last year, they're in full rebuild right now, and George is a guy they're going to want to give a look to. In his first start of the season, 31 minutes, 7 points, 2 rebounds, 9 assists, 3 for 8 from the floor. It's those assists. That's what you're chasing after with George here. If he sticks in the starting lineup, good chance he does even after Kessler returns. There's no reason for them to plug George into the lineup like that unless the intention was to keep him there moving forward.
Before we jump into our Friday DFS section, we want to touch on some potential drops in fantasy leagues.
Well, here's maybe the controversial one. Would you drop Jabari Smith if you're in a 10-team league? They've only got 2 games this coming week. He's averaging 14 and 7, but less than half a block a game. Not shooting well. He just doesn't seem to be meshing with all those veterans they brought in there.
I think he's okay to drop in a 10-team league because his volume has not increased at all, his shooting volume. Yeah. His defensive stats are not increasing. Neither are his assists. He's exactly who he was last year, even if he continues to shoot efficiently. I mean, he's shooting 50% from the field and 40% from 3, and you're still only getting 14 points per game out of him. I think he's a drop.
I'm going to push against that. Jabari Smith Jr. is currently ranked 9 category, about 109. He's right in that 110 range, we'll call it. through 7 games. Guess who else is ranked right in that same range through 7 games? Jamal Murray, Bruce Brown. I'm not dropping those guys. Chris Paul. I'm not dropping Chris Paul, Ken.
You might drop Bruce Brown.
Nah. No, and absolutely not dropping Bruce Brown. Not in a 10-teamer, not in a 120-player deep, 140. That's about 120 to 140 players deep in a lot of 10-teamers. I think Jabari Smith's a hold. I think it's super encouraging that we're seeing him hit 2.1 3-pointers per game. The 50% from the floor is encouraging. We're going to see better days ahead this year for Jabari Smith.
Well, and here's some easier drops. Bones Highland and Norm Powell for the Clippers. They have 2 games this week. And obviously they just added James Harden. And we already bashed Obi Toppin in the lack of minutes he's getting with the Pacers, who only have 2 games this week too.